of the things that people said was about giving religious authority to a single person. Like for Christians, you have the Pope, or like a priest, and Jewish people have rabbis, and all those, and like we have obviously we have gurus and pandits and different religions. So is that still relevant in our society to to give the religious authority to a single or a group of leaders?
Um, my personal opinion is no. I think that if you believe in God, that is if you do, then you don't need someone to tell you what to do. I think you have a direct connection with God, and you can, follow whatever he says or she says. I don't think you need a religious leader for you to believe in God or be a good believer.
So I think that I think that the priestly class, even in the past and even today, hold a very important role in sustaining the religion, and they are the ones who actually prescribe so and so traditions. You take Hinduism, you take Manusmriti, you take Manu, and you take a number of people who succeeded Manu. So all of these people are the priestly class who sort of prescribe a particular tradition, who interpret religion and ask the people to be a particular way, and all of that. So I think, like, as so I personally believe that religion must not have a very significant part, like it must not have a very significant role in the in shaping the development of people, because I think religion is bound to like create frictions between people. So because between at least communities, for example, especially in diverse countries like India, where it's in a heterogeneous population.
Yeah.
Because as because I think, like, it will inevitably cause friction, and it will also cause conflict with the constitution, because constitution is one thing, and religious laws are a little different from the constitution. And I just basically think that religion must be extremely personal, it must not be communal, and it must not be extremely organized. And I think it must go away, like, from the people. It must cease to have the importance it has today, at least, like, when it is linked with politics. It should not be linked with politics at all. And unfortunately, also, that's happened, in whichever country has excessively involved religion with politics.
Yeah, the
Those
church has
countries are.
always had, relations with, you always say the church always has relations with the kings. So I think, that's
Right.
the
so
clergy.
so yeah, I just think that whichever country had in the past affect, like, any relation with politics, whichever, sorry, I mean to say, whichever religion has a lot of connected with the politics of the country, those countries have gone to dogs, like, literally. They haven't developed, they haven't progressed, they've actually become more medieval rather than evolving and progressing. And another thing is that religions have been written, as, like, be it the Quran, be it the Bible, or even, like, whatever the Hindu religious scriptures, all of them have been written approximately 2000 years ago, approximately, on average. And we cannot implement and practice the what was written 2000 years ago today in the 21st
Right.
century. And any religion has been extremely regressive to, like, especially women, because most of them who've written religious laws, have been men. So no religion on earth today is gender inclusive. And so if we cannot be extreme, like, I think, like, if we really want to progress, we should not give religion utmost importance. I'm not saying people must, completely not believe in God or things like that, but religion must be extremely personal, and it must not be extremely political. And people must also not give religion dogmatic importance, and must, like leave certain vices of the religion, and like be it any religion, not only one particular religion but any religion, they must evolve. Religion must also evolve, and religion will evolve efficiently only when it is not institutionalized. If it is institutionalized, it is bound to get corrupted, and it's bound to get more regressive than whatever actually religion has prescribed. But whatever, like ultimately, as long as religion is not involved with the institution, political institution, I think it will evolve. Like it is inevitable for religion to evolve, because in the context of urbanization and modernization, with the advent of technology and globalization, people have to a certain extent uh, got rid of certain unnecessary notions, and also revolutions have played a significant role in breaking the old religious dogmas. And I think that's why revolutions are important. Let us keep revolting, let us keep revolting socially, politically, and even religiously. And as long as we do that, I think we can cleanse ourselves of most of the vices which religion has left us, and keep the good parts of the religion, and also, yeah, move ahead together and promote fraternity like ultimately all of us need to live together, and we shouldn't contain ourselves, and we should not stop marrying each other or eating with each other on the basis of religion, because that is a social construct at the end of the day.
Going back to the point of hope and stuff, um, I do realize that there are many different ways that minorities react to hearing all the news that happens. That is very clearly, and it's no longer like a subtle attack against the minorities, a very clear attack against the minorities. I mean, we've seen with the CA, and but when that happens, there are some reactions that I've seen, and one of the major reactions is people wanting to fled the country, which I think, no, I mean that's a different story. But as I said, coming back to hope, it's the people who are just accepting their what they perceive as their fate. Like, do you think it'll get worse if we stay here, and even if the government changes? Because now even the, what should I say, the opposition governments who are saying this again, we don't know whether they may be thinking about this is how they've done it, and they've collectively gotten the majority of the Indian population to be for them. What if we use these same tactics? So do you think it could get worse in the future, that more and more hope is going to be lost?
I think for me personally, hope is already lost. I think it's a lost cause. I think this country is heading towards fascism, and I think it's going to happen. But yeah, hope is being lost, and leaving the country or flooding the country is, I think, the reaction of people who are economically stable. You
Yeah,
and
that's
I can leave the country, not a lot of people can. And I think what we as responsible citizens should do is not try and fled, but try and change. Because most of the people in this country can't afford to move abroad.
obviously, yeah.
And there's no guarantee that they'll be safe abroad, because this world is becoming more and more minority phobic.
Yeah, and yeah, that's true though. Like, I mean, the very fact that I don't lose a lot of hope is might also be because of my privilege, because I don't belong to the minority community. But yeah, like that's completely like because of my privilege that I might not fear this whole thing as much, because probably they might want to get rid of the Muslims, or get rid of the Christians or other minorities. But I don't think they would want to get rid of like majority community people, or people who occupy the administration or whatever. So the thing is, but I think it's really important for all of us to have hope, because fascism has not been able to sustain itself for a long time anywhere in the world till date.
Except
At the end of the day,
Mexico.
there is an end point, and it ends at some point. And that model of growth, it's not even growth, that model of that model itself
Yeah.
cannot sustain itself for a long time
Right.
because because economy cannot hold up, and ultimately at the end of the day what people really need, like their material conditions actually determine, they vote on the basis of material conditions. They want development, they want electricity, they want water, they want good agriculture, they want uh, jobs, they have all of those things. Religion uh, cannot carry on the momentum of this thing for a long time. And I think at the end of the day, people could defeat a person like Indira Gandhi once upon a time, when because from 1975 to 1977, for 18 months approximately, India was in
Right.
emergency. People never knew that things were actually going to come. Like nobody ever knew that uh, India would be a democracy again. And also, like, nobody ever thought somebody like people could defeat a person, a powerful person like Indira Gandhi, who had like 350 majority on her own, even without an alliance and something like that. So I think ultimately ration must prevail, and I hope ration does prevail. And I hope people get really sensible and not fall prey to gimmicks over national security, and not vote on the basis of religion. So as it ultimately depends on how, on what basis people vote for, and for which I think it comes back to again how press is so important. So I think if press plays a good role, I think if press plays a constructive role, I think democracy can help a great deal. It can help democracy a great deal. So yeah.
But I have two things to say. One is that um, you said that fascism cannot last very long. But my problem is that that period where the country is fascist, a lot of things are going to happen, and it's
Yeah.
going to damage the country. So what about that? And the second thing is, I don't have a lot of faith in the people of India, and I might get a lot of backlash for this, but that's because after all that Indira Gandhi did, she was re-elected. So
I don't even think that's just politically. I mean, it gets hard to, from a social perspective, just generally reading up the news and seeing what people are doing. I mean, I'm sure you all have recently read up about boys' locker room, and I mean, uh, and I'm just saying that is the youth, which is our generation. Even I mean, and and for them to do things like that, how are we supposed to like, as Zara said, it is difficult to, I think, maintain that hope. Not that there'll ever be a position where nothing bad happens. Like, I don't think that'll ever be a reality. There is no utopian world where nothing bad happens. But I mean, it gets worse and worse. Even during lockdown, I read up that there was still rapes happening, which it's just, it's also heavy, I'd say. And so I think for Zara saying that she's already lost her hope, she doesn't have faith, is, I mean, I understand where that would come from. Moving on from all of this, I wanted to talk about, like, obviously the most current issue, what we're all facing right now, which is lockdown and quarantine, and basically how the government is handling it. Now, just to put it in perspective, I'm sure you've all read the news that the government, not the government, well, the railways have charged the migrant workers to travel back home.
yep.
Now, we're still, I mean, people are still paying taxes to help fund the government. People are, I mean, the government has these funds, and somehow they are still charging these migrant workers, which is very upsetting, because these migrant workers probably don't even have, they're migrant workers, obvious, and most of these people are working in labor, which means that they do not have the money usually to do something like that. And then, who knows if the government can kind of point a finger and being like, oh, they're all trying to raid railways now, or they're stealing tickets and all of that stuff. Obviously, if you do something as ridiculous as that, it will lead to more crime and more discomfort. So what do you both have to say about what the government is doing right now during this lockdown period, and is it enough?
No, it's absolutely not enough. Because some statistics show that more than 90% of the migrant laborers have not received rations from the government, but from people like the both of you, NGOs, and stuff. And also about the issue you were talking about, the train thing.
Yeah.
um, the government said that we will not charge tickets. It'll be, I think, 85% will be paid by the central government and 15% by the state governments. But that has not happened. And yeah, and you cannot criticize the government, because there are people who've taken up the initiative to criticize the government, to just be trolled. And you know what's worse? The prime minister follows these trolls. So I remember reading this one really demeaning thing about said about a woman, by a troll who was about the migrant issue, by a
Yeah.
troll who was followed by the prime minister, and he hasn't been reported. Nothing's been done.
And like, the Chief Justice, again, I said this in the last time we shot this, but the Chief Justice said that if we're giving them food, what is the need for us to give them money? Which again, a whole other, like, what do you mean? Like, uh, I think, it's a bad situation. But yeah, Arnava, what are your views on this?
I think like there's so many issues like regarding the how the government has treated like even handled the lockdown. I think the lockdown was it's very important. It was inevitable. I think lockdown had to happen, but the way it happened was extremely bad and not well planned, because I think like like the government knows about like the statistics of a number of people, migrant workers were there, approximately 12 crore migrant workers in the country. And it had given literally 4 days time for like what was that clapping thing for the doctors, and it has given 4 hours time for the government for the lockdown. So that says a lot. And especially without arranging any transportation, without arranging any train system and all of that. So there might be a number of issues regarding that. But right now also the issue regarding the train fares, it also comes under the complete central list. So there are various subjects, and certain subjects come in the state list, certain subjects come in the concurrent list, and certain subjects come under the central list. And especially, and in the constitution, and I think I don't really remember which specific act or anything, but it says that during unforeseen circumstances and pandemics or any emergencies, the central government needs to bear the like the traveling for all the migration for any people, not only migrant laborers, for anybody. So I think like they're even charging 15% from making the state governments pay even 15% of the money is a lot, and it's unconstitutional. And in such circumstances, nobody can do anything about unconstitutional things. And so people just do that. And in fact, a lot of people, even like the migrant laborers, even actually paid their fares to go get back home. And secondly, another thing is that this government has not, most of the administration comes under, like especially at such a time, comes under, like the most of the responsibilities happen to be of the state governments, and state governments have to do all the planning, coordination, and like
Right.
service delivery of a number of ration or anything that sort. But at least the least the government, central government could do is to effectively provide resources to the state, state government, and that like it hasn't been doing even that. And that's something basic. Like we've had information about like about COVID coming to India soon, like since almost January. And what has the government done? Is there no efficient plan, or do they not want to just spend resources? And one last thing, it's like we're seeing this pattern throughout the like the world, where the right wing governments or very fascistic governments are following a similar very miserly attitude towards like they're not spending much. They're like whether you see Bolsonaro in in Brazil, or Netanyahu, or even Trump for that matter. So it's a very economy oriented. I'm not saying economy is not important, but it's like, okay, it's okay. There will be casualties. We can't help it much kind of I don't care attitude.
I
So I
think
think
now
like
they even have a better excuse now because they're like there's no GDP being produced now because of
exactly.
lockdown, so they'll easily be like, oh yeah, so we can't spend
And
money.
they haven't even right now the price of crude oil has plummeted next level, and I think and right
Right.
now we are earning a lot, approximately some studies say that we have 7 lakh crores in our coffers only because of the crude oil price getting you know really less. So I think like what are the people, what is the government's plan, and what's happening with PM cares and PM so the government argues about PM cares, saying we don't want to, that PM cares is not even official state prime minister's relief fund. It is a private trust with the prime minister, home minister, and a number of people from the BJP heading the thing. So PM cares is also an extremely like non-transparent uh, sort of trust, and with no sort of accountability or responsibility. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the PM cares money. And there's so many issues relating to that. I think like this is one of the worst things like Narendra Modi has done. I mean, not Narendra Modi has done, but the government hasn't effectively managed this thing. And one more last thing is that I think there was another recent study which ironically which said that Narendra Modi's popularity as a prime minister increased from 76% to 91% because of the way he dealt with COVID. So that is extremely disappointing and
Okay,
sad
sorry,
because
that was I was like, ah.
yeah,
So see,
so
now you
that's sad.
understand Zara's plummet of hope.
I
Um,
know, I know, I get
yeah, but
it. Yeah,
no, there are other things about lockdown which I will not understand. Like, so I know the crude oil prices have even gone to negative now, and
yeah,
the prices have increased for diesel and petrol here. That's something when there is no demand, like let's
yeah,
there's no demand, there's nothing happening, and the prices have increased. That's number one. I gave this example before that one of my friend's drivers lives in a Muslim community, and he was not allowed to go and collect rations. The police were there
Right.
stopping him, and then other than all of that, coming back to why can't we criticize the government when the whole lighting ceremony, I don't know what it's formally called, honestly, and I wish I could care, but when that whole thing happened,
It's
I
called
remember just
fascism.
okay, yeah, okay, yeah. But when that whole thing happened, I remember I was so angry with. I mean, we've all watched Tanmay Bhatt's video about it, and seeing that, and seeing people on the streets being like, "Oh, we can defeat coronavirus," or like "Ja Corona Ja," whatever, and
yeah,
they
yeah,
were not following social distancing. They were together, and like I mean, we don't know who they were supporting, but I'm just saying. And in these situations, no, I know, I'm saying in these situations, and if we ever if, and I spoke out about this. I put up the video, and the one was like, the government is trying so hard to preach unity. That's great, but look at what it did. There were fires, people were using up electricity, burning firecrackers, causing air pollution. Like, I mean, why would you even propagate this nonsense? It's not like the government
Yeah.
wouldn't know about it, especially in a country where we have all these things anyway, and like they're waiting to go outside, and this is like kind of like an excuse to be like, oh yeah, celebrate the workers, celebrate everybody.
Yeah, on both instances that the prime minister gave us tasks to do. The second one, the Dia one, there was this. I don't know if you watched that video of the BJP MP or MLA who was leading people, and a lot of people, like there were hundreds of people on the road in Hyderabad saying, "Go Corona, go!" And I put up the video, and this Bhakt was like, bro, you urban Naxals don't even appreciate what the government's doing. Instead of picking loopholes in the government, you should actually appreciate what the government is doing and stand up with the nation. Yeah,
I think
it
now it's
hurt my
very
heart.
clear. it's very clear that we can separate the government from the nation now. At least minorities will be able to do that. Even if
Yeah.
we're called
I mean,
anti-national.
you have people like Tejasvi Surya saying, if you're anti-Modi, you're anti-India, and if you're with India, you're with Modi. What are you thinking? Yeah. So
It is.
now, if you're not a Bhakt, you can't love your country.
Okay, so I mean, we've been really plummeting a lot and kind of spiraling, but I did want to kind of talk about how all of us have had to do a lot of things for the first time during this lockdown of all religions, I guess. We've had Easter and Good Friday during lockdown. Ramzan is going to be going on throughout because now it's extended till the 29th. And of course, we
Yeah.
had Shivratri, if I'm not wrong. We had Shivratri during the lockdown, if I'm, yeah. So all of this that was
Yeah.
happening, and I remember, from the beginning, people were just like, "Oh, he's gonna extend it because of Ramzan, because he knows that if he opens fire, everyone's gonna like go and meet up and all of that stuff." And cases will start going. And although it never came officially from our chief minister, stuff like that is kind of disappointing to hear, especially during like a celebratory time for you know for a community, and like it just it makes me upset. I mean, it's like the biggest. I think it's like the biggest festival for the Muslim community. And this is one of the many, but like it's a huge thing, and people immediately go and criticize even now just seems a little bit bitter, and yeah.
Yeah, nothing officially comes out, Zach, from our Prime Minister's mouth ever for anything good. Um, he never condemns anything. He's all nice and sweet. But when you see what's going on with the channels that are supporting him and the people that are supporting him, it's extremely communal. Extremely communal. I mean, you have people saying that, yeah, now we can't open the lockdown because Muslims are going to go out and spread the virus, just like they've already done with the Tablighi Jamaat. And then you also have the Prime Minister saying, COVID doesn't see um, um, religion or race or class. That's exactly what Hitler did. He said something but did something else. So I'm just trying to point out where our country is going, like I've already done, like 5 times.
Okay, well, to conclude, do you both have any final statements or things that you could say to, the younger generation to probably like help educate them and be more aware and stuff? Any tips and just your concluding statements?
If you want to be educated properly about what's going on in this country right now, stop news, Times Now, Republic TV, India Today,
India Today.
channels
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. And there's something else, no? Amish Devgan something. I don't know what it's called.
Basically,
I don't even watch
we
it.
have to stop watching like everything which is being broadcasted.
Yeah, on TV. Apart from, I think, NDTV, it's quite unbiased. Yeah, so start watching things like, not watching, but on social media, you have the Quint, you have the Wire, things like that. Things that are unbiased. Because I think
But
in
you know
this
what the
crucial
retort
time,
of a lot of people is going to be? They're going to call NDTV, Wire, the
Biased
Quint,
against
Wire.
biased
So
against
leftist.
the
yeah, they say it's Congress funded, and they say it's like okay, it's left funded and anti-national, and yeah, a lot of things. Just like
Yeah,
a lot of us call all the other media channels Godi media.
yeah, I know.
Or
But
rather,
but
if
the
you are
point,
watching them, you should still have the brain of your own to see whether or not it's correct or not.
yeah, the thing is that you don't watch channels that are 24/7 आरती उतारोफाइंग of Modi ji, because you always have Modi ji चाय पी रहे हैं, Modi ji कैसे पूरा दिन काम करते हैं,
Aam kha rahe.
Modi ji ye hai. Aam kha rahe with Akshay Kumar. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have this glorifying of the prime minister and diverting from issues, when I think you have the Delhi riots going on, you have the CA going on. You are more concerned about Biwi ne bajaya Kim ka band. I mean, come on. It's, yeah, I mean, watch channels, biased, unbiased. Watch channels that are giving you some information about what's going on in the country right now, and not just random topics like Saas Bahu or Nagin mein kya hua next. I mean, there should be some credibility to the channel. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
So I think, like, lastly, I just want everybody not to lose hope. Zara, please, I want you also not to lose hope, because I think we'll all like, it'd be really, really nice if we. I know, like, I know there will be, this phase of, this phase of fascism is having a lot of taking a toll on mental health of a lot of minorities, and it's also having a lot of casualties, especially of all communities belonging to the minorities mostly. So I think it's really important for all of us to have hope and have faith in democratic processes, and also, and we ultimately need to have hope on the constitution too, and we must respect the wishes of the people. I mean, like, uh, in the sense that we must respect and think that the people also are not fools to believe in such a kind of ideology for a long time. People, ration does prevail over religion. At the end of the day, it's happened in the past. You see, like, I know, like, you've given the example of how Indira Gandhi was re-elected, but after Indira Gandhi was re-elected in 1982 or something, her manner of governance had actually changed from the pre-election, before emergency. So I
Yeah.
think basically, like, losing a political party, losing also has a lot of significance, because with the fear of losing again, the political parties sometimes do not make the same mistakes. That is
Yeah.
ultimately the concept of, like, giving political parties the scope to contest for elections again. Otherwise, if we look at it in terms of that, we once a political party loses, they must be barred from elections. It's something like that. So every electoral defeat is going to change the ideology, change the discourse. It is change the whole narrative of elections, and they might not be very explicit. They might not, we might not know the value of, like, the real value of a political defeat. But I think, like, without actually knowing, there will be a lot of progress and reform, even with the defeat of an ideology, even once. So I think, I just hope a lot. I'm not I don't think I have been able to express that very clearly, as well as I wasn't able to articulate it very well. I hope you guys could understand, but I just hope everybody has hope in the constitution. I think I really, really, really want a lot of people to just uh, read up the constitution, not read up very, very, in depth, but at least know the basics of the constitution, and be aware, politically aware. And that's the only, and also acknowledge your privilege. Like, if you are not affected, that means you're privileged. And if nobody is asking you to give up your privilege, but people are only asking you to acknowledge your privilege. And if you can acknowledge your privilege, that means you are being sensitive. And if you are sensitive to the interests of the people, you are largely promoting fraternity and brotherhood. And at the end of the day, that's so important. And I just hope ration does prevail over this thing, and this fascism ends no matter what. And I think, like, we all shall contribute our own bit for this to end.
Anyway, I just want to thank you guys for coming. I mean, Arnava has done a lot during this lockdown period to provide rations to people, especially people who, are the less fortunate. And obviously, Zara is definitely representing the youth, which is more informed, politically more informed about the world, which is great. But yeah, just thank you guys a lot. And I think it's a very empowering, and it does promote a lot of representation and also sparks a lot of interest, I think. So thank you guys for doing this a lot. Yeah, I think we're done. So thank you. Goodbye, guys.